The night sky over the mountains was always quiet, liked it that way. He had moved to this remote place 3 years ago after leaving the military. He wanted peace. He wanted silence. He wanted to forget the things he had seen and done. His small farm sat at the edge of a thick forest. The nearest village was an hour away by car. Most people thought he was crazy to live so far from everything, but did not care what people thought. He had his vegetables, his chickens, and his old dog named. That was enough. On this particular night sat on his wooden porch. He drank tea and watched the stars. The air was cold and he wore a thick jacket, slept at his feet, her gray fur rising and falling with each breath. Then he saw it. A streak of light cut across the darkness. At first thought it was a shooting star, but it was too bright, too big, and it was getting closer. The light grew larger and larger, stood up, his tea forgotten, woke and began to bark. The sound that followed was like nothing had ever heard. It was a terrible roar, like thunder mixed with screaming metal. The object crashed into the forest about 2 kilometers away. The ground shook. Birds flew from the trees in panic. A column of smoke rose into the night sky, glowing orange from the flames below. Did not think. He ran inside, grabbed his flashlight and first aid kit and headed toward the crash. Tried to follow, but he ordered her to stay. Whatever had fallen from the sky, it could be dangerous. He did not want his dog to get hurt. The forest was dark but knew these paths well. He had walked them 1,000 times. He moved quickly, pushing through branches and jumping over roots. The smell of burning reached him first, then the heat. When he finally reached the crash site, he stopped and stared. It was not a plane, it was not a satellite, it was something else entirely. The craft was huge, maybe 30 meters long. Its surface was smooth and silver, though now it was covered in burns and cracks. Strange symbols were carved into its hull, symbols that did not recognize. They did not look like any language from Earth. Fire burned all around the wreckage. Pieces of the craft lay scattered across the forest floor. Trees had been knocked down in a wide circle. The heat was intense and had to shield his face with his arm. He should have been afraid. He should have turned back and called the authorities, but something made him move forward, a feeling in his gut, a voice in his head that said someone needed help. He circled the craft looking for an entrance. The fire made it difficult to get close, but then he saw it. A section of the hull had been torn open by the impact. Through the gap, he could see movement. Someone was inside. Did not hesitate. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around his hands to protect them from the heat. Then he climbed through the opening. The inside of the craft was filled with smoke. Red lights flashed. Strange machines made clicking and buzzing sounds. Wires hung from the ceiling, sparking with electricity. And there, lying on the floor, was a figure. Approach slowly. When he got close enough to see clearly, his heart nearly stopped. The figure was humanoid but not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost silver in the dim light. Her hair was white as snow and very long. Her ears were pointed and her features were sharp and delicate. She wore a flowing gown made of material that shimmered like water. She was beautiful and she was badly hurt. Blue blood seeped from a wound on her forehead. Her eyes were closed and her breathing was shallow. One of her arms was trapped under a fallen piece of machinery. Pushed his shock aside. He had seen wounded soldiers before. He knew what to do. He knelt beside her and checked her pulse. It was there but weak. She was alive. He examined the machinery pinning her arm. It was heavy but not impossible to move. He positioned himself carefully, found a good grip, and pushed with all his strength. The metal groaned and shifted. He pushed harder. His muscles screamed in protest, but inch by inch the machinery moved. Finally her arm was free. It was bruised and cut, but it did not look broken. Wasted no time. He lifted the strange woman into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. He carried her toward the opening in the hull, stepping carefully over debris and avoiding the flames that were now spreading inside the craft. When he emerged from the wreckage, the cool night air hit his face like a blessing. He moved away from the fire as quickly as he could, not stopping until he was at a safe distance. He laid her down on a patch of soft grass and opened his first aid kit. He cleaned the wound on her forehead and wrapped it with bandages. He checked her other injuries, cuts, bruises, but nothing that looked immediately life-threatening. She still had not woken up. Looked back at the burning craft. Whatever this woman was, wherever she came from, she was clearly not from Earth. His mind told him this was impossible. Aliens were things from movies and books. They were not real. But she was very real. He could feel her pulse under his fingers. He could see her chest rising and falling. Behind him, the craft exploded. The force of it knocked forward. He covered the woman with his body to protect her from the flying debris. Heat washed over them. Flames reached toward the sky. When the explosion faded, slowly sat up. The craft was now nothing but burning wreckage. Whatever technology it had contained, whatever secrets, they were gone. But the woman was still alive. Made a decision. He could not leave her here. He could not call the authorities. If he did, they would take her away. They would put her in a laboratory. They would study her like an animal. He had seen what governments did to things they did not understand. He had been part of such operations in his military days. He knew the darkness that lived in powerful places. No, he would not let that happen to her. He lifted her into his arms again and began the long walk back to his farm. Was waiting for him at the edge of the trees. The old dog looked at the strange woman and whined softly. "It's okay," girl said. "We're going to help her." He did not know who she was. He did not know where she came from. He did not know if she was friend or enemy. But she needed help, and had never been able to walk away from someone who needed help. It was his greatest strength. It was also his greatest weakness. He carried her into his small house and laid her on his bed. He covered her with blankets and lit the fire to keep her warm. Then he sat in a chair beside her and waited. Outside, the burning craft lit up the forest. Smoke filled the sky, and somewhere far above the earth, eyes were watching. The hunt was about to begin. 3 days passed. The strange woman did not wake up. Stayed by her side as much as he could. He cleaned her wounds and changed her bandages. He dripped water into her mouth to keep her from getting too dry. He talked to her sometimes, even though she could not hear him. He told her about his farm, about the mountains. He did not know why he talked. Maybe he was just lonely. Maybe he hoped his voice would somehow reach her. On the 3rd night, her eyes finally opened. Was sitting in his chair, half asleep, when he heard her gasp. He jumped up immediately. She was sitting upright in the bed, her silver eyes wide with fear. She looked around the room, taking in the wooden walls, the simple furniture, the fire burning in the corner. Then she looked at. She spoke in a language he did not understand. Her voice was musical, like bells ringing in the wind, but her tone was clearly one of fear and confusion. Held up his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe. You crashed here. I found you." She stared at him. Her eyes moved over his face, studying him. Then she touched her forehead and felt the bandages there. Understanding seemed to dawn in her expression. She spoke again, and this time noticed something strange. The words started in her language but slowly shifted. By the end of the sentence, she was speaking Korean. "Where am I?" she asked. Blinked in surprise. "You speak my language." She touched a small device behind her ear, had not noticed it before. "Translator," she said. "It learns, takes time." "You're on Earth," told her. "In the mountains of Korea, I'm." She was silent for a moment, processing this information. Then she said, "I am Lyra, princess of the Empire." A princess. Almost laughed at the situation. Of all the things that could have crashed on his mountain, it was an alien princess. Your ship was destroyed, he said. I pulled you from the fire. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Lyra's eyes widened. 3 days. She tried to stand but immediately fell back. Her body was still too weak. Easy, said, moving to support her. You need more rest. No, her voice was urgent now. Fear returned to her eyes. They will be coming. They followed my ship. They shot me down. Who asked? Raiders, Lyra said. Criminals from the outer systems. They want me. I am valuable to them. A princess of the Empire would bring a great ransom. Felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Raiders. Aliens who shot down ships and kidnapped princesses. And they were coming here. How long until they arrive? He asked. I don't know, Lyra admitted. They might already be searching. As if the universe wanted to answer her question, suddenly began to bark, looked toward the window. In the distance he could see lights moving through the forest. Strange lights, not flashlights, something else entirely. They're here, Lyra whispered. Moved quickly. He had been a soldier for 15 years. His body remembered what to do even when his mind was still catching up. He went to a locked cabinet in the corner of the room and opened it. Inside were his old weapons. A rifle, a pistol, several knives. Lyra watched him with wide eyes. What are you doing? Protecting you, said simply. He loaded the rifle and checked the pistol. Then he handed Lyra a knife. Can you use this? She took it uncertainly. I have never held a weapon before. Then stay behind me and stay quiet. Moved to the window and looked out. He could see them now. 3 figures moving through the trees. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. They did not look friendly. Made a quick plan in his head. His house had only one door. The windows were small and difficult to climb through. If the raiders wanted to get in, they would have to come through the front. That was where he would meet them. Hide under the bed, he told Lyra. Don't make a sound. She wanted to argue, he could see it in her eyes. But she was too weak to fight, and she knew it. She crawled under the bed and pulled the blanket down to cover herself. Turned off the lights. He positioned himself beside the door, rifle ready. The raiders reached the house. They did not knock. One of them simply kicked the door open. Fired. The first raider fell instantly. The bullet hit him in the chest and he collapsed without a sound. The other 2 reacted with impressive speed. They dove to the sides, taking cover behind the walls. Energy bolts flew through the doorway. They burned holes in furniture and walls, but had already moved. He knew this house. He knew every shadow, every corner. The second raider tried to rush in, shot him in the leg. The alien screamed and fell, finished him with another shot. The third raider was smarter. He stayed outside and began firing blindly through the walls. The energy bolts tore through the wood like it was paper. Dropped to the floor and crawled. He made his way to back window. Slowly, quietly, he opened it and climbed out. The night air was cold against his skin. He could hear the raider still firing into the house. Moved along the outside wall, staying in the shadows. When he came around the corner, he saw the raiders back. The alien was focused on the house, unaware of the human creeping up behind him. Did not give him a chance to turn around. He raised his pistol and fired. The raider fell. For a long moment there was silence. Stood among the bodies of his enemies, his heart pounding in his chest. 3 alien raiders, 3 kills, not bad for a farmer. Then he heard it, more lights in the distance, more raiders. How many of them were there? Ran back into the house. Lyra, we have to move. She crawled out from under the bed. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. You killed them, she said. With such primitive weapons, you killed them. There are more coming, said. Can you walk? She nodded and forced herself to stand. She was unsteady, but she could move. Grabbed a backpack and threw in supplies. Food, water, bandages, ammunition. He called for and the old dog came running. Together, the three of them left the house through the back door. They fled into the forest. Behind them, more raiders reached the house. Could hear their angry shouts when they found their dead companions. He could hear them beginning to search the surrounding area. But knew these woods. He had walked them for 3 years. He knew every path, every hiding spot, every stream. The raiders did not. He led Lyra deeper into the mountains. They climbed rocky trails and crossed cold rivers. Whenever they heard the raiders getting close, they changed direction. By dawn, they had reached a cave that had discovered last summer. It was hidden behind a waterfall, almost impossible to find unless you knew exactly where to look. They crawled inside and collapsed on the cold stone floor. Lyra looked at with wonder in her eyes. "You saved me again," she said. "Why?" Leaned back against the cave wall, he was exhausted, his body ached, but he managed a small smile. "You needed help," he said. "That's reason enough." Lyra shook her head slowly. "Among my people, nothing is done without expectation of return. Your kindness is strange to me." "Maybe that's why humans are different," said. He closed his eyes. "Now rest. We're safe for now, but they won't stop hunting, and we need to be ready." Outside the cave, the waterfall roared. The forest was waking up to a new day. And somewhere in the darkness, the raiders were still searching. 2 weeks passed in the mountains, and Lyra moved from hiding place to hiding place. They never stayed in one spot for more than 2 days. The raiders were still out there, still searching. Sometimes saw their lights at night moving through the distant trees, but they never found the hidden cave. They never caught his trail. During those 2 weeks, Lyra grew stronger. Her wounds healed. She could walk without help. She could even run short distances. And during those 2 weeks, she learned about humans. Was not a man of many words. He was quiet and patient. He did things instead of talking about them. When they needed food, he hunted and gathered without complaint. When the nights were cold, he gave her his jacket even though he was freezing. When she had nightmares about the crash, he sat beside her until she fell asleep again. He asked for nothing in return, not gratitude, not payment, not even information about her or her people. This confused Lyra deeply. One evening they sat by a small fire in a new cave, lay between them, enjoying the warmth, was cooking fish he had caught from a nearby stream. "Why do you help me?" Lyra asked suddenly. Looked up from the fire. "You asked me that before. And you gave me an answer that made no sense," Lyra said. "Because I needed help. That is not a reason, that is nothing." Was quiet for a moment. He turned the fish slowly over the flames. "Among my people," he finally said, "there is an old belief. When you save someone's life, you become responsible for them. Their fate becomes tied to yours." Lyra frowned. "So you help me because of superstition?" "No," shook his head. "I help you because it's the right thing to do. The belief is just a way of explaining what we feel naturally. When someone is hurt, you help them. When someone is in danger, you protect them. It's simple." "It is not simple," Lyra said. "Among my people, everything has a price. Every action has a purpose. If you help someone, you expect something back. That is how society works. That is how the galaxy works." "Then maybe the galaxy is wrong," said simply. Lyra stared at him. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. The fish finished cooking, divided it and gave her the larger piece. She looked at the food in her hands, then at him eating the smaller portion. Another act of kindness without expectation. "Tell me about your world," she said quietly. "Tell me about Earth." And so began to talk. He told her about the countries and cultures. He told her about the wars and the peace. He told her about the good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly. He spoke of humans who had done terrible things and humans who had sacrificed everything for others. "We are not perfect," he admitted. "We fight each other, we hurt each other, we make many mistakes, but we also love deeply. We create art and music. We dream of reaching the stars." He paused and looked up at the night sky through the cave entrance. "Looks like you got here first." Lyra found herself smiling. It was a strange feeling. She had not smiled in a long time. "Tell me about yourself," she said. His expression changed. Something dark passed through his eyes. "There is not much to tell." "You were a soldier," Lyra said. "I can see it in the way you move, the way you fight. Why did you leave?" Was silent for so long that Lyra thought he would not answer, but finally he spoke. "I was part of a special unit," he said. "We did things that governments do not want the public to know about. Dangerous things. Violent things. I was good at it. Too good, maybe." He stared into the fire. "One mission went wrong. People died. Innocent people. Because of orders I followed without questioning." Lyra saw the pain in his face. She understood now why he lived alone in the mountains. He was running from his past, just as she was running from the raiders. "After that," continued, "I could not pretend anymore. I could not follow orders that felt wrong, so I left. I came here to find peace, to try to become a better person." "And saving me," Lyra asked softly, "is that part of becoming better?" Met her eyes. "Saving you is just being human." Days continued to pass. Lyra watched closely. She saw how he cared for, speaking to the old dog as if she were a friend. She saw how he treated the forest with respect, never taking more than he needed. She saw how he checked on her wounds each day, his rough hands surprisingly gentle. She began to understand why the old records of her people spoke of humans with fear. The Empire had known about Earth for centuries. They had watched from afar as humans developed. At first, they saw them as primitive, weak, unimportant. But as time passed, the observers became worried. Humans grew too fast. They adapted too quickly. They survived things that should have destroyed them. Wars, plagues, disasters, nothing stopped them. They just kept going. The Empire decided long ago to leave Earth alone, not because they respected humans, but because they feared what humans might become if pushed. Now Lyra was seeing that potential up close. One man, with simple weapons and basic knowledge, had fought off raiders with advanced technology. He had survived in the wilderness while caring for an injured stranger. He showed kindness without reason and courage without hesitation. If one human could do this, what could a billion of them do? One night Lyra woke to find gone. She felt a moment of panic, but then she heard his voice outside the cave. He was talking to someone. She crept to the entrance and looked out. Stood in a clearing looking up at the sky, sat beside him. The moon was full, casting silver light across the mountains. "I don't know if you can hear me," was saying. His voice was soft, meant for no one but himself, and maybe the universe. "I don't know if there's anyone up there listening, but if there is, please help me keep her safe. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Let me do this one thing right." Lyra felt something warm spread through her chest. She had never heard anyone pray for her before. Her family loved her in their cold and formal way. Her subjects respected her because they were supposed to. But no one had ever simply asked the universe to protect her. She returned to her spot in the cave and pretended to be asleep when came back. But she could not actually sleep for a long time. She lay in the darkness, listening to his steady breathing, and she thought about what kind of species could produce a man like this. Perhaps the Empire had been right to fear them. Not because humans were dangerous, but because they had something the Empire had lost long ago. Heart. The next morning, Lyra made a decision. When her people came to find her, and they would come eventually, she would protect. She would make sure he was rewarded. She would tell the queen herself about what this human had done. She did not know then how soon that chance would come, or how difficult it would be to keep her promise. The fleet arrived on the 18th day. Saw it first. He had gone to a high ridge to scout the area. When he looked up at the sky, his breath caught in his throat. Ships, dozens of them, massive vessels that blocked out the clouds. They descended through the atmosphere like silver gods, leaving trails of light behind them. The largest ship was the size of a mountain. Its surface shimmered with patterns that seemed almost alive. Ran back to the cave. "Lyra," he said, his voice urgent. "Something is coming, something big." Lyra followed him to the ridge. When she saw the fleet, she fell to her knees. "The Empire," she whispered, "my mother's fleet." Watched the ships descend. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. Technology beyond anything Earth had ever created. Power beyond imagination. "That's good, right?" he asked. "Your people found you, you're saved." Lyra did not answer immediately. Her face was troubled. "I do not know," she finally said. "My mother is not a warm person, and you are human. She may not look kindly on you." "I'm not worried about me," said. "I'm worried about you." Lyra looked at him with surprise. Even now, facing a fleet that could destroy his entire planet, he was thinking of her safety. The largest ship stopped directly above the mountains. A beam of light shot down from its belly, touching the ground about a kilometer away. The light was so bright that had to shield his eyes. Then a voice echoed across the mountains. It spoke in the musical language of Lyra's people, but could understand it clearly. The translator behind Lyra's ear was broadcasting the words. "Princess Lyra of the Empire, your presence is requested aboard the royal vessel. You will be collected immediately." Lyra stood tall. "We should go to them," she said. "They will find us anyway. It is better to meet them with dignity." Nodded, he whistled for, and the three of them began walking toward the light. As they approached, they saw figures descending from the sky. Soldiers in gleaming armor floating on platforms of pure energy. They were tall and beautiful like Lyra. Their faces were cold and expressionless. The soldiers landed around them, forming a circle. One stepped forward and bowed deeply to Lyra. "Princess," he said, "we are relieved to find you alive. Her Majesty has been greatly concerned." "I am well thanks to this human," Lyra said. She gestured too. "He saved my life and protected me from the raiders." The soldier looked at. His silver eyes showed no emotion. "The human will be brought as well. Her Majesty wishes to meet him." That did not sound friendly. One of the soldiers reached for weapons, stepped back instinctively. "He comes as my guest," Lyra said firmly. "He keeps his weapons." The soldiers exchanged glances. It was clear they wanted to argue. But Lyra was their princess, and her word was law. "As you wish," the lead soldier said. They were led onto a floating platform, whined nervously, pressing against his leg. He bent down and picked up the old dog, holding her in his arms. If he was going to meet an alien queen, he was bringing his dog with him. The platform rose into the sky, watched the mountains shrink below them, his little house probably destroyed by now, his farm abandoned, his quiet life over. He did not feel regret. He felt only curiosity about what would happen next. The platform entered the massive ship through an opening in its hull. Inside, everything was white and silver. The walls glowed with soft light. The air smelled clean and sweet, unlike anything on Earth. They walked through long corridors lined with soldiers and workers. Everyone stopped and bowed as Lyra passed, and everyone stared at with confusion and suspicion. A human on the royal vessel. It was probably the first time in history. Finally, they reached a great door. It was twice the height of any human door, covered in those strange symbols had seen on Lyra's crashed ship. "The throne room," Lyra said quietly. "My mother is inside." Looked at her. "Any advice?" "Do not show fear," Lyra said. "My mother respects strength, and whatever happens I will protect you, I promise." Smiled slightly. "I should be the one saying that." The doors opened. The throne room was vast. 100 human houses could fit inside it. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Lights floated in the air like stars. At the far end of the room sat the queen. Ruler of the empire, keeper of the 1,000 worlds, daughter of the eternal light. She was beautiful, more beautiful than Lyra in a colder way. Her skin was pure silver, her hair like liquid moonlight. Her eyes were ancient. They held the weight of centuries, the knowledge of ages. She wore a gown of pure light that shifted and changed with every breath. She looked at them as they approached. Her expression did not change, but could feel her attention focusing on him, pressing against him like a physical force. They stopped at the foot of the throne. Lyra bowed. After a moment of hesitation, bowed as well, but not as deeply. He was not one of her subjects. Sensing the tension, stayed very quiet in his arms. "Daughter," Queen said, her voice was like music made of ice. "You have returned to us, this brings us joy." "Mother," Lyra replied, "I am grateful for your concern." "You were gone for 19 days, the Queen continued. "Raiders attacked your vessel, you crashed on a primitive world, and yet you survived." Her eyes moved too, because of this creature. Met her gaze, he did not look away. "Human," the Queen said, "come forward." Walked forward until he was only a few meters from the throne. Up close, the Queen's presence was overwhelming. She radiated power like the sun radiates heat. "You saved the life of our daughter," the Queen said. It was not a question. "I did," replied. "Why?" The same question Lyra had asked, gave the same answer. "Because she needed help." The Queen was silent. She studied him with those ancient eyes, could not tell what she was thinking. "We have watched your species for many cycles," she finally said. "You are young, primitive, violent. You destroy your own world and fight endless wars among yourselves. By all measures, you should not have survived this long." Did not argue. Everything she said was true. "And yet," the Queen continued, "you persist, you grow, you reach beyond your limitations." She leaned forward slightly. "You confuse us, human. Your species confuses us greatly." "Maybe that's because you judge us from a distance," said. His voice was calm. "Maybe you should get to know us before deciding what we are." The Queen's eyes widened slightly. Behind him, herd soldiers gasped. No one spoke to the Queen this way. But the Queen did not seem angry. If anything, she seemed interested. "You have courage," she said, "or perhaps stupidity, we are not sure which." "Sometimes they're the same thing," replied. For a long moment, the throne room was silent. Then the Queen smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there. "Tomorrow," she said, "we will hold the judgment. We will decide what to do with you, human who saved our daughter. Until then, you will be our guest. You will be given quarters and treated with respect." She waved her hand. "Take him away, but treat him well. He has earned that much at least." As the soldiers led out of the throne room, he looked back at Lyra. She was watching him with worry in her eyes. He gave her a small nod. "Everything will be fine," the nod said. He hoped he was not lying. Slept surprisingly well that night. His quarters were beautiful, a room larger than his entire house on Earth, a bed softer than clouds, windows that looked out at the stars. Food appeared whenever he wanted it, brought by silent servants who bowed and left without speaking. Explored everything, sniffing at the strange furniture and alien decorations. Eventually, she settled on the bed beside him and fell asleep. Stared at the ceiling for a while. He thought about his farm. He thought about his old life. He thought about Lyra. Then he closed his eyes and let sleep take him. When he woke, soldiers were waiting outside his door. They told him it was time for the judgment. He washed his face, put on his old clothes. He had refused the alien garments they offered and followed them. The throne room was different today. Hundreds have filled the space. They stood in neat rows, watching as walked down the central path toward the throne. Their faces showed curiosity, suspicion, and something else. Fear realized they were afraid of him. Not because he was dangerous. One human could not threaten the Empire, but because of what he represented. The unknown. the species that confused them, the creatures from the primitive world who refused to stay primitive. Queen sat on her throne. She looked even more magnificent today, dressed in robes of woven starlight. Beside her stood Lyra. The princess wore formal attire as well, but her eyes were only for. He stopped at the foot of the throne and waited. "Human," the queen's voice echoed through the hall. "You stand before the Empire to receive judgment for your actions. You saved the life of Princess Lyra. You fought raiders and defeated them. You protected our daughter with your life." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "For this," the queen continued, "you deserve great reward. Name your price. Gold, technology, a place of honor in our empire." Considered for a moment, the entire hall waited for his answer. "I don't want payment," he said. Silence, complete silence. Even the queen looked surprised. "Nothing?" she asked. "I didn't save Lyra for reward," said. "I saved her because she was hurt and alone, because it was the right thing to do. That's not something you pay for." More murmurs, louder this time. Some voices sounded confused, others sounded impressed. "You are a strange creature," the queen said. "We have ruled for 500 cycles. We have met thousands of species across the galaxy. Never have we encountered one like yours." "With respect, Your Majesty," said, "you've watched us from far away. You've studied us like animals in a cage, but you've never really known us. One visit to Earth, one real conversation, would teach you more than centuries of observation." The queen leaned back in her throne. Her expression was unreadable. "You speak boldly for someone standing in judgment." "I speak honestly," replied. "That's all I know how to do." Lyra stepped forward. "Mother, may I speak?" The queen nodded. "During my time with," Lyra said, "I learned something important, something I never understood before." She looked at the gathered nobles. "The humans have a quality we lost long ago. They call it heart. It is the ability to care for others without reason, to sacrifice for strangers, to love without conditions." She turned to face her mother directly. "We are old, Mother. We are powerful, but we have become cold. We calculate everything. We measure every action by its benefit. We have forgotten what it means to simply care." The queen was silent. "Gave me his jacket when I was cold," Lyra continued. "He gave me the larger portion of food when we were hungry. He prayed for my safety to a universe he wasn't even sure was listening. He did all this knowing he might die, knowing he would probably never be rewarded." Her voice grew stronger. "That is not primitive, that is not weakness. That is something beautiful, something we should learn from, not fear." The throne room was absolutely quiet. Everyone was staring at the princess who dared to criticize their ancient civilization. Queen stood from her throne. Slowly, majestically, she descended the steps until she stood directly in front of. Up close, she was overwhelming. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. She looked into his eyes. He looked back unflinching. "Human," she said softly, so only he could hear. "I have lived for 500 cycles. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have made decisions that changed the fate of worlds. And in all that time, I have never met anyone who looked at me without fear." Said nothing, he simply waited. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you not afraid?" Thought about the question. "Fear doesn't help," he finally said. "If you're going to kill me, fear won't stop it. If you're going to spare me, fear is unnecessary. Either way, I'd rather face what's coming with a clear mind." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was not a cruel laugh. It was genuine, surprised, almost delighted. The sound echoed through the throne room, shocking everyone present. No one had heard the queen laugh in decades. "You are remarkable," she said. "Primitive weapons, basic knowledge, a dying world. And yet somehow your species produces individuals like you." She stepped back and addressed the entire hall. "The human is not to be harmed, now or ever. He is to be considered a friend of the Empire. He will be given our highest honor, the Star of Gratitude, for saving the life of the princess." Gasps filled the room. The Star of Gratitude had not been given to anyone in over a century. "Furthermore," the Queen continued, "I am ordering a change in our policy toward Earth. We will no longer simply watch. We will reach out. We will learn from them, as my daughter suggested." She turned to, "You asked for nothing, human, but you will receive much. We will protect your world from any threats in this sector of the galaxy. We will share our medical technology to heal your sick. We will help you reach the stars that you dream of so deeply." Was speechless. He had expected death, or at best a quiet return to Earth, not this. "There is one more thing," the Queen said. She smiled, and for the first time there was warmth in it. "My daughter has told me she wishes to learn more about your people. She has asked permission to visit Earth as our ambassador." She looked at Lyra, then at, "I believe she has other motivations as well, but that is a matter for young hearts, not old queens." Lyra's face turned a shade of blue, felt his own cheeks growing warm. "Do you accept these terms, human?" the Queen asked. "Will you return to your world as a friend of the Empire with a princess at your side?" Looked at Lyra. She was watching him with hope in her eyes, hope in something else, something deeper. He smiled. "Yes," he said, "I accept." The throne room erupted in applause. Strange, musical applause from hundreds of alien hands. Later, when the ceremony was over and they were alone in the corridors of the ship, Lyra grabbed's arm. "You really asked for nothing," she said. "You could have had anything, wealth, power, technology, and you asked for nothing." Shrugged, "I have everything I need." "And what is that?" He looked at her. "A quiet farm, an old dog, and now, I suppose, an alien princess who doesn't know how to stop asking questions." Lyra laughed. It was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. "I have one more question," she said. "Of course you do." "Will you teach me?" she asked. "Teach me to be more human." Considered this for a moment. Then he took her hand in his. "I'll try," he said, "but I think you're already more human than you realize." Behind them, the stars stretched out into infinity, a vast galaxy full of wonders and dangers, waiting to be explored. And somewhere on a small blue planet, a quiet farm sat empty in the mountains. Its owner had gone on the greatest adventure of all. But he would be back someday, with stories to tell and a princess by his side. And that was only the beginning.